built to separate predominantly white Bridgeport from all of the Black neighborhoods east of the Dan Ryan. It was literally built to keep that visual reminder that, hey, there's no crossover. There's no equality. This is the good stuff over here. This is the terrible stuff over here. And this is where you should hang out at. And so once I saw those bridges, it brought that back to mind. Anyway, probably less than 24 hours, those bridges were set back right where they were supposed to be. And hopefully they'll never, ever return to that upright position.
It's so incredible. I experienced that small slice of change that's been happening. I was trying to get to an appointment, walking to an appointment, and I turned the corner. I saw the bridges up, and I saw the first glimpse of the National Guard, right? And it just kind of struck me. And it wasn't more than 48 hours later that I saw on Instagram stories that you were at the center of this change, this shift that was about to happen. And A, I wasn't surprised. And B, I give you a lot of credit for, continuing to do what you do, which is not only navigate, but enact change in very realistic and reasonable ways. My question to you is, as you see all of this coming at us, you who has been at the center of a lot of change and bringing voice to community, how do you choose what to get involved in? Now that our collective awareness is at a heightened peak, are you choosing differently in terms of what to get involved in or how to get involved in it? Do you feel like you've got to make bigger leaps, or are you still after the smaller change that you've been doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think 9 or 10 years ago, there was an earthquake in Haiti. Maybe less than 8 months later, I was in Haiti trying to figure out a way to help those resilient people. Maybe 7 or 8 months after the hurricane in Katrina, I was in New Orleans with Operation Push and Jesse Jackson trying to figure out how to balance the scales of inequality as a result of a hurricane. I think now that I have 3 kids, I have to navigate life differently because I want to be around for them. And so I try to think, what's the greatest amount of impact that I can have that won't overexpose me to not being in the life of my kids? Because I didn't have a father growing up. And so that's the tension that I've been balancing or trying to manage over the past few years is how deep do I go, right? And so I think the deciding factor in that is this going to prohibit me from being in the life of my girls or being able to be effective? I can't get arrested. I can't get fined. I can't have any money going out because all money needs to come in. And so I have to manage those tensions, and I just like to keep it real. So I haven't been out stumping and protesting because I can't get sick. If I get sick, that stops me from being a provider, physically, emotionally, relationally. I haven't been out because I don't want to get hurt. So I had to figure out a way again to exercise this activism that's just naturally on the inside of me, figure out how to use it. And social media, of course, has helped all of us do that. Smartphones has helped us all do that. And that's why I don't hate on anybody that's activating people. You can be doing it from your couch. You can be doing it out on the street. Just activate folks. Activate yourself.
I love that. I want to introduce our topic, and you've already been touching on certain aspects of it. We're here today to talk about resilience. Right. And over the course of the last few episodes, we've put this topic through a couple of different lenses. And today we really want to put it through the lens of community. As you see community maybe a little bit differently than others, and community is a big part of your life and your career. We want to talk about how we can build resilience as individuals and also as groups of people. Before we get into that, I want to make an observation, and I want you to either confirm it or build on it. When you talk about your life's priority shifting and having to make decisions based on your life priority shifting, one of the things that I've noticed with you is that you've put a system in place, whether it be communication channels or just in your day-to-day actions, that allow you to put out a steady stream of value, of messaging, of change. That's, you know, the LinkedIn articles, the daily reminders to us leaders to stay the course. Even the way that you are connected one-on-one with people like myself, you know, getting back right away, your cadence. Do you feel like that system is really able to help you navigate, continue to provide value, and not feel like you have to take a giant leap into the current state?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, I don't follow the crowd. I kind of do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I take a lot of pride in that, because, you know, I don't want to be this wandering generality, right? I want to be a meaningful specific. And I figured out how to do that. I figured out how to be a meaningful specific by focusing on motivation, inspiration, and leadership. And I feel like you can take those into the activism world. You can take those into the business world. As I matriculated at Kellogg, I can take those into the religious world, of course. But I didn't want to be this Roman generality, just like, hey, man, I'm with the people today. I just wanted to bring some meaningful, specific structure to my life. And I found it. And once I found it, I put my foot on the gas. You know, I always say eyes on the pedal, and a foot on the pedal, eyes off any pedestal. I don't want the pedestal. My feet are on the pedal. Pedestal will come. And even if it don't come, my responsibility is to put my foot on the pedal and work.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first of probably 5 or 6 trademarkable one-liners by Mr. Tim Jones. You see me, I'm taking notes. I usually don't take notes during these sessions, but I knew I had to have a pen out for this one. To be a meaningful specific.
Yeah.
That's incredible. The dichotomy of those two words, but also the specificity is real. And I think that's one of the things that I think we're all trying to consider today is, you know, how do we shift our thinking? How do we step into the conversation? How do we enact change? And I think a lot of people, because of how quickly a lot of this is coming at us, feel like we need to meet it with equal and opposing force. And oftentimes that does mean jumping into the crowds. Oftentimes that does mean really raising our voice as loud as we possibly can. But meaningful and specific, I think, goes to, again, some of the systems that you've put in place personally and professionally to be able to provide value in a lane that you know touches people. And it doesn't necessarily take an entire country waking up for you to be able to continue to remind people and to continue to provide your voice. I love that.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I don't get mad. I was writing about Cap when nobody was with Cap. I stepped out and supported Mayor Lightfoot before any of these highbrow, high capacity, high professional folks jumped out to be with her. And I'm not saying that for any credit right now. I'm just saying I'm really certain and sure about who I am and the direction and the legacy that I want to leave. And the more we as individuals get comfortable with that, the better this place will be, and we won't have to wait decades for destructive structures to fall.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, let's start to zoom in on resilience. One of the first things that we like to do in this topic, because we know that there is no one clear definition for this term, and we know that this term is now taking on new meaning. What does resilience mean to you?
Yeah, the last time I was with you guys, I shared that resilience to me is the ability to bounce back. And to make it just really sticky, resilience is the ability to bounce back every time from anything. And another thing that I shared the last time I was with you, it all starts up here. It all starts in the mind. And and I think that's the importance of mental management and understanding that you can bounce back from everything, from anything, every time. And although things will be tough, I will spring forward, I will fall back, but ultimately I will keep coming. So you're not the Terminator, but you're not terminated either, right? And so it's just, right, you gotta, every time from anything, and it's basically just the mindset that, you know, I'm permanently inspired to overcome anything, whatever comes my way. And it's just something that you have to get up top first before you can act it out and live it out. It's a mentality.
And how do you develop that? You know, the ability to overcome anything, anytime.
Yeah.
I think I probably messed up the words on that,
yeah.
But is that how do you build that muscle? How do you build resiliency in yourself?
Yeah, we talked about this before we jumped on today about how things grow. And I remember writing about,
Love that.
you know, how some of our favorite things grow, and they grow two distinct ways: out of sight and in the dark. And the only way to get that mindset, that mentality, is out of sight and in the dark. That has been the importance to me of the shelter in place, quarantine, everything's canceled season that we've been in. It's an opportunity for me to grow out of sight and in the dark. And it's just, it's the same thing Peyton Manning used to do when he used to practice with his receivers before the game or during the week. It creates this muscle memory so that when I face a tough time, I don't spaz out, I don't whine out. I realize that I'm tough time immune. And that's what resilience is. I am tough time immune. That's what the people of Haiti are. The first people of African descent to get their independence from a colonizer. That's who the people of Haiti are. That anytime, through everything. So yeah.
So in terms of resilience, you know, we talk about, you know, what it means to you. Has the definition or the meaning of resilience changed for you over the course of the last, you know, 4 to 6 months? You know, in recent times, has that term evolved either for you or for your community?
No, it does. It does. I think it's the same across the board, no matter what you're facing. I think now, you know, it's the difference between turning the red convertible that you probably have. Maybe Norm has a red convertible. There's a difference between turning that red convertible and a 12-passenger van. You can whip that thing hard and fast when it's just you in the car. But the moment you add people to the team, you know, it's a little bit slower. Resiliency takes a little longer. It's a little more, it's trying. It requires more consensus building, but ultimately it requires more trust. And so again, as you move from an individual and you move into leadership, it's no longer about you. You have to start considering who else is on the team. And that makes bouncing back a little bit harder because now you have other people's feelings to consider. You have other people's personalities and Myers-Briggs to consider. So it doesn't change. It probably gets tougher if you're in this thing for the right reasons.
Yeah, it's interesting, the juxtaposition between resiliency as a leader and as you mentioned, building personal resilience. You know, what I'm hearing you say is that building personal resilience is done oftentimes in the dark and alone.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Are there practices, modalities, mindsets that you're able to put yourself in that either calibrates your sense of I can get through this, or builds your sense of I can get through this? You know, some people meditate, you know, some people have mentors, some people journal. Are there daily practices that potentially contribute to your increased sense of resilience?
I mean, I'm a man of faith. I've been a man of faith for about 20 years now. I think I'm anchored in my faith in all the work that I do. I can't speak and write and talk about motivation and inspiration and leadership without having that relationship. A lot of my discontents are holy discontents. It's not just something that I'm casual, like I don't have any casual stances. Any stance that I take, I'm going to bat for. I'm going to fight it out and thug it out to make sure you hear me and hear me well about it. But for me, I'm anchored in my faith. A of course, I just try to kind of manage and monitor what I read, watch, and listen to. I think that's really important for a leadership, and just building that mental toughness is really figuring out what you want to read, watch, and listen to, and even who you want to follow. Like, I don't want to follow Soldier Boy, right, on Instagram. I don't have anything to glean and gain from him, but there is somebody that is more closely related to the direction that I want to point my life in, and so I need to find who that individual is. And so, outside of just my faith, it's really that read, watch, listen to, and I'm talking about from telecommunication to friends, environments in general.
It almost seems like there could be a need for a message of resilience to our people, right? I think there's a lot of people that are struggling right now.
Right.
I think people, we talked last week about people mistaking grit for resilience. The difference between I've just got to muscle this out, or I've just got to like push through it. I think there are people that are struggling to maintain resiliency or to maintain even consistency in this environment. Would you have a message for folks that are struggling?
Well, I believe they're struggling because it's not often that we look for places like this to be in. And I think you asked the question, and we talked about this. I don't know when we talked about this, but we can't learn anything from comfort zones. And what we've all been experiencing, no matter the generation, no matter the culture, no matter the business sector, is uncomfortable times. And that's the reason why you need to seek out challenging, uncomfortable times. And I think that is the kryptonite to our leadership, to our ability to bounce back, to our ability to take on risk. It is comfort. And we have to avoid those comfort zones. And comfort zones are just synonymous with ease. And I just think ease has an adverse effect on us. And that's why people are feeling this thing so hard. We have to seek out a challenge.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was almost thinking there's always like one curveball question, and you're about to get a curveball question. So we didn't prep for this one.
Oh man.
But I'm thinking, as you're talking, I'm hearing like, okay, I'm relating to this as an adult. If you and I could stand here and we could be face to face with our 5th and 6th grade selves, and maybe you can see this through the lens of the way that you're interacting with your girls. How do we instill resilience in the younger generations, or what would we tell our 5th and 6th grade selves that really just want to like throw the football and tell jokes?
Right. Yeah. You know what, Anthony, I get a chance to talk to graduating classes probably for the past 4 years now, 8th grade graduations, high school graduations. And the one thing that I tell them is that, get comfortable with seasons. Seasons are temporal states. They can be triumphant times, or they can be trying times. And I always use this analogy, and I'm sure I've used it on in my time with you about, the electrocardiogram, that machine that they hook us up to measure the activity of our hearts and to measure the activity of our brains. And the only way that we know we have a healthy heart or a healthy brain is they hook us up to it, and that sucker goes like this. It goes up and down. And I try to draw a comparison and parallel to life. Guys, a healthy life moves just like this. You're graduating today. You find the major that you want to find and major in and make the money that you want to make. You find a boo. That's a high. You lose that boo. That's a low, but it's a healthy life. Trying times doesn't necessarily equate to a bad life. Just like that heart, just like that brain, it's healthy. It goes up and down. And that's just how our lives are. And I wish I knew that when I was in 6th grade. I just expected high highs all the time.
Yeah.
Every time I expected a high high. And if it didn't, I thought something was wrong with me. And I
Yes,
thought something was wrong with my life.
absolutely. I love that you went there, because that's where my mind went to as well too. And the underlying message that I would piggyback on that, if our 5th and 6th grade self was sitting here, is that it's going to be okay.
Right.
That if you're experiencing the highs and the lows, that's okay. That it's not something that you've got to fix, or not something that you did wrong. And I think as you get older, you start to let go of those judgments that you have on yourself and potentially others.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that perspective. Let's shift into how, resilience might affect larger groups of people. Where it feels like we, as a broader community here in the US, smaller communities, whether that's within a team that you're in or a family unit, there's this term, we're all going through this together. We'll all get through this together. How do you start to see directing and shaping and guiding community through this type of change?
Yeah, again, the moment you decide to trade that two-seater in, for a 12-passenger van, you better be ready to build some trust. And I think resiliency, when it comes to community, it boils down to trust. I have to trust that Anthony doesn't have any ulterior motives. I have to trust that there are no big I's and little U's. I have to trust that as a team, corporately, we're going to give credit where credit is due, and we don't care who gets the credit. Resiliency is best built in community by making sure everyone feels connected and everyone is connected to the overall mission of the place. The founder, the managing director has to find a way to uniquely take his or her power, tear it up into little pieces, and then redistribute it amongst the team. If a leader doesn't do that, they're gonna have the problem that you had when your favorite boy band broke up, right? Or that.
You're talking about me specifically?
No, well, you got upset when your boy band broke up, but that boy band broke up because here's what I believe: the group was selling millions of records. They would have fans across the globe. Everybody was happy, except for that one guy who couldn't hear his voice on the record. We got to figure out how to make sure that everybody on the team hears their instrument, hears their voice on the record. And so when tough times come, people don't get upset and want to leave the group, want to disassemble, want to sabotage. We got to figure out how to include everybody so that they can take the wins, the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with the org. And I don't think we do that.
Yeah.
Because we want it to happen we want it to happen as quickly as turning that two-door or that two-seater.
Yep. Yeah. And the concept of the shift that occurs when you go from managing yourself to managing others it's very real. Right. And building resiliency in teams and communities does mean that you need to approach it a lot differently. So I appreciate those perspectives. I want to talk about something that might not be, directly related to, but it might be a key ingredient to resiliency. And I bring this up every conversation that I have with you because it's synonymous with Tim Jones. When I think Tim Jones, I think of this. I know it's in the fabric of everything that you do. And I also think that it's something that a lot of people are interested in today, and that is consistency. As I mentioned earlier, I think one of the most incredible things about your leadership, Tim, and the way that you exist within your different communities is that there is a very stream of consistency that we all get from you, that we can count on a day-to-day basis. And it's the way that I interact with you. And you and I talk maybe once a month, twice a month.
Right.
But my engagement with you is in that consistency. And that's seen through, again, the messaging that you put out there, the articles that you write, your voice on Instagram. And it's encouraging others to, and you use this term a lot, stay the path, or you're right on track. You use that term a lot. So tell us a little bit about consistency and why do you use the term you're right on track as much as you do?
Yeah, I think this just goes back to doing that that out of sight, in the dark work, so you can figure out, what's the reason somebody should be calling you, what's the reason someone should be texting you. Again, that you're not this Roman generality, but this meaningful specific. Only you know that, right? Only you know the purpose and the plans that you want to get out into the world while you're here. And I think for me, it was just doing that work when nobody saw me, taking those tiny steps, putting out change.org petitions and nobody signs them, or posting something and nobody likes it, or my very first blog and nobody pays attention to it. But it was just this commitment to leave no potential on the table. And I want to get to your question about, me telling people you're right on schedule. But this idea of leave no potential on the table, all of it is an exercise in reverse suppression. As long as I've been doing this, I've probably been telling myself I can't do it just as long. And so now, 4 years, 5 years into this thing, every gift, every skill, every ability, no longer am I pressing that sucker down saying I'm too young, or I didn't go to this school, or I didn't graduate from this school, or I don't have a mentor. Now it's an exercise in reverse suppression where I'm writing, I'm sharing my thoughts publicly. I don't care if someone judges my website. I saved for my website. And so every instance is an opportunity and to reverse the suppression that was going on. But the reason why I tell people they're right on schedule is because I firmly believe that if you're still here, there is a plan for your life, right? We know hundreds of thousands of people just from COVID-19 alone have left this place. So despite your hard times, despite someone unsubscribing, despite someone not buying your t-shirt, you are right on schedule if you continue to do the work, right? If you keep that consistency, if you understand why you're here and what is your holy discontent, you are right on schedule. But if you go back to suppressing who you are, the gifts, skills, and abilities that you have, nothing is going to happen.
Is there also a part of loosening the grip a little bit with that you're right on schedule, trust the plan? Is there a part of letting go that can be found in resiliency? I'm trying to, it's interesting. We've gotten close to making that connection, I think, in a couple of our other discussions where I almost want to push against the concept in resiliency of powering through, muscling through grit. And what I'm hearing from you say is that there is a component of trusting the process, or even trusting, God's bigger plan, or trusting something that you just need to let go of a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, my two favorite things to say about time when I'm talking to the generation behind me is sometimes when it comes to time, we either going to be springing forward or we're going to have to understand when to fall back. Just uniquely like the time zones that exist in America, we spring forward and we fall back. Now, this isn't something that a 20-year-old wants to hear. All the 20-year-old, 25-year-old Tim and Anthony want to hear is I'm springing forward. There's no fall back. Fall back is for someone that's a non-performer, that doesn't finish. But there is a unique quality about being able to fall back and still being productive. You're not falling back and, washing your hands of the work. You're falling back to recalculate, to rest, to make connections to help scale your work. So yeah, there's no harm in falling back and taking time out. And everybody, I mentioned this our last time together, everybody wants to return to normal, but rest is how you return to normal in most instances.
Mm-hmm. Man, there's very few people that can say certain things over and over and over, and every time they either take on new meaning or they hit a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
And I've heard you say spring forward, fall back multiple times, and every single time it's hit and it's meant something different to me. So thank you for your consistency in that messaging, because I think it's extremely timely.
Yeah, it's interesting. As I share every morning on social media, sometimes I feel like it has to be new. They can't hear this before. It has to be. And then it's just like, wait a minute, you need to hear some things again so that they process differently during different times in our life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and you're right on schedule. Again,
Right.
is something that I count on seeing in your LinkedIn posts and your Instagram. It is a daily flashcard for me.
Right.
And that's all you have to say are those 4 or 5 words. And I can immediately take that and apply it to a decision I'm about to make, or the day that I'm about to manage. So again, sometimes even without context, that consistency really, really helps. And I know it's motivated me and a lot of folks in our community. So again, thank you. Man, this time went so quick. I've got about 30 more minutes that I would love to be completely selfish with, but we do have some questions that came through and I want to make sure that we get to them. So if you don't mind, can we answer a couple questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so first question comes from our Zoom room, and this is a good one. So it seems, Tim, that you're stepping into a lot of activities that require a lot of energy. So what does Tim do to restore or replenish his energy? So when you talk about rest,
Right.
What do you do to fill back up? I know we're supposed to be dumping out, but like, what do you do to fill back up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really practical when it comes to that. I have a gym membership, so weight training. I kind of monitor what I put into my body as often as I can. And so that's mind, body, and I just try to just take in good information. And I think, there's one of my favorite books says, you'll know a tree by the fruit that it bears. And no one can glean or gain anything from me every morning if I wasn't making those necessary and positive deposits into my life. I couldn't produce any of those things. And so, again, I have a responsibility to my community. And so I do the work to fulfill my responsibility.
Love that. And I love this next question. There's a couple layers to it. So the question is, did you learn the notion that change is inevitable and it's useful to embrace it at home, from your faith, or from life experiences?
Oh man, all three. I mean, when you so I had a challenging upbringing. I was raised by a single mom. And so things were just tough. I came to faith and realized that I could, exchange my burdens for this godly rest. There's good scripture that talks about that, exchanging our burdens for his rest. And then life, if the alternative is where I kind of spend my time. I can't be mad. I can't be upset. I can't be impatient, because I know that the effect that can have on my energy, my emotions, my intellect. And so I choose the positive route. And so that notion of just things will get better. You're right on schedule. It's a life season, not a life sentence. Life taught me that. My faith taught me that. My mom taught me that.
Love that. Okay, a couple more questions. Interested to hear any critical shifts Tim is seeing in the way we build and invest in community and re-enroll in our communities from the virtual first time. So maybe that's a 2-part question. Are we seeing shifts in the way we invest in our communities, and what will that look like in a more virtual first environment?
Well, I mean, so truth is really important for any type of advancement. Where I am, just the God honest truth and candor surrounding that. And right now, the truth of the matter is, and it's been this way for a very long time, 4/5 of the world is Black or brown. And I feel like over the past 2 weeks, people have just came to that conclusion that, wait a minute, the majority of our globe, we have been treating in an adverse way. They need better treatment. No, it's always been that way. And that's what I start all my diversity and inclusion talks with is there's a problem over there. Please don't avert your eyes. And we have to stop averting our eyes to truth. And we have to live in the truth, as ugly, as murky, as uncomfortable as it may be. And I think, unfortunately, unfortunately, that's the shift that we're seeing, is that more of us collectively want to operate in truth because we know it's going to get us forward. Suppressing truth, hiding truth, taking our body cam camera off and throwing it on the roof, that doesn't help us move forward.
More truth.
More truth. And I always feel like I'm just telling like the basics and the ABCs on this program, but it's just really, we just have to fall in love with the foundation of things. And truth is one of those things that we have to embrace and fall in love with.
Second part of that question, has your voice or the way that you've organized people had to shift as we've moved to shelter in place and virtual first? Have the tactics shifted? Has your energy shifted? What are you doing behind the Zoom wall?
Yeah, I think for me, virtually, I've mobilized more people than I have face to face, right? That's just how smartphones and social media works. This exponential growth happens a little quicker. So I've just been trying to figure out how to leverage that and just the timing of things, not an algorithm, but just really just right place, right time, right force. Because there used to be a time where if it was truth, I was coming with it and you had to take it no matter what. Now I understand right place, right time, right force. I know how to communicate a message now that can have humor in it, that can have inspiration in it, but it could be dragging someone to court at the same time too. So yeah, that's
wonderful.
Yeah.
Why don't we'll do one more question. And this is coming in from LinkedIn. And actually I'll put two in front of you because there's a couple. I mean, there's a lot, there's a real theme here around how do you maintain optimism and focus when the world feels overwhelming? Maybe we'll close it out with that, because there's a couple questions. And I think a lot of people feel like, how do we talk about resiliency and consistency. How do I remain positive and focused? How do we come through this in a positive and focused way?
So I think the statistic is just about 50 million people in the United States suffer through depression. Depression, depressed, not pressed, won't move forward. That's what happens when we're not positive, when we're not patient, and when we lose sight of the pedal, right? Stepping on the pedal and being consistent. I just think about the alternative, and the alternative scares me. I don't want to be in a position where I'm not pressing, where I'm not moving forward. And, I know depression is a real disability, a real dis-ease. So I'm not trying to lighten that if you were more positive and more patient, you wouldn't be depressed. I'm trying to focus on the not pressing part. And I think when we think about negativity, when we think about being impatient and upset with a situation or a system, that leads us to worry about today or tomorrow today. That's anxiety. And then it leads us to not press. That's depression. And so for me, in order to avoid those traps or those positions or postures, I like to remain positive. I like to remain patient, and I like to stay consistent because it's part of my mental health. And I think if we treated it as how we maintain our mental health, maybe it could be a little bit easier. And again, I'm not minimizing those individuals
Sure.
that struggle with it, because it is a struggle.
Yeah, that's incredible. Again, this dialogue, this discussion is so valuable. I want to comment that there are a couple of notes in both our Zoom and LinkedIn around how powerful this discussion has been, Tim. So I first and foremost want to thank you for coming to the table. You know, a lot of the concepts that we talked today, consistency, resiliency, building trust within yourself and within others, those are the key ingredients that I have seen shown up in the relationship that I've had with you as a friend, as a colleague. And I know that that's the way that our community sees you when you show up. And as I mentioned before, there are certain messages that you provide on such a consistent basis. And I know you said, it feels like I just hit the ABCs. Tim, no, your message is clear and it's consistent, and it hits differently every single time. So it's really interesting also to experience someone like yourself as a leader in the middle of these last 4 months. Because the last time you and I were together, we were together a couple of weeks ago talking about this, but prior to that, the world was a completely different world. You were saying the exact same things. And to us, we're just so fortunate to have you a part of our community, to be providing this consistency to us in ways that we can experience and interpret on our own. And I know that our community feels comfortable reaching out to you. I know a few already have, to make connections and to get some advice. So where can they find you, Tim, if folks want to reach out to you?
Yeah, IamTimJones.com is the website. I am Tim Jones, LLC on Instagram and Twitter. Twitter gets a little crazy sometimes. I'm probably more political and more active there. Of course, Facebook, Tim Jones, Timothy Jones on LinkedIn. But I would love to connect. I am Tim Jones at Outlook.com, however you want to connect.
Wonderful. Yeah. And if you're like me and you need that daily dose of you're right on schedule, you're right on track, Tim on Instagram, I am Tim Jones LLC on Instagram, is great. His stories are just a constant reminder of the work that he's doing on a day-to-day basis. So Tim, thank you so much. This will not be the last. This is only the beginning, I think, of your voice being shared on our platform and our entire community. Thank you so much for stepping into the discussion.
Thank you for the invitation, man. I love y'all.
Wonderful. I want to thank everybody else who has joined, those folks who joined the Zoom room, those folks who see us on Facebook. I hope some familiar names and faces pop up from back in the day. We appreciate everybody tuning in. We are here every Thursday afternoon at 3:00. We broadcast live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Next week, we have another incredible leader at the table talking about resilience and what that's meant to him and his organization as they have navigated the change of the last several months. So Mark Rickmeyer from Table XI will be joining us. Kathy will be facilitating that discussion. And we're just thrilled to bring such incredible people, such incredible voices to the table on a week-to-week episode, or on a week-to-week basis. We thank you all for joining, and we look forward to seeing you next week, Thursday. Have a good day, everybody.